Well, friends, I've never been one to fill your head with lies. Tonight is no exception. I'm here. I'm live streaming. This runs afoul of my anticipated actions following the premiere of that video. I figured I'd go straight on to bed. Instead, I provoke my viewership to say the following. Oh, yeah? Yes, I can define quality and provide you the definition. I don't have a definition in mind for quality, but it's a fun word to think about. Like, in my mind, there's no doubt that this is a quality cigarette. It's a Marlboro Red. Marlboro Red is a quality cigarette. There's also little doubt in my mind that Aztec brand cigarettes, not a quality cigarette. They're the cheapest cigarettes. They're like brandless cigarettes. I can tell you in no uncertain terms. Marlboro Red American, quality cigarette. Marlboro Red Chinese, definitely not as good a quality. And by and large, I would say, no, not a quality cigarette. Okay, some people might disagree with that assessment. They might say, Eric, those things you're talking about are just matters of personal taste, completely subjective. All right, fine. So what about, say, a piano? Let's say one piano is made with the cheapest possible materials, as with low workmanship standards. It's, even when in tune, as best as it can be, it's still slightly out of tune, and the tone, it sounds like it's being played in a plastic listener fatigue magnifying sphere. Well, in that case, and you compare it against a very high quality German piano, is one of them of higher quality? Is that just subjective again? Let's go one further. This camera only goes to 720. I've been told by many people, including Cloud and others, that I should upgrade to the next level of camera that does full HD. Does that mean that that camera is of higher quality? If you're going to say that quality is just subjective, then can I say, no, they're both equally high definition? Is that just subjective? I mean, nobody's going to say that, right? Now, we agree one is more high definition than the other. One is more empowered to attain good outcomes than the other. But we refuse to acknowledge that one is a better quality than the other. It seems a strange thing to say. However, when we talk about something like a cigarette, like I began with, Marlboro Red being a quality cigarette, can you tell? Can you smell, feel, taste the quality? All right, so Ninfa says, maybe, but someone from the past might think that the cameras from the present are better quality, and that could be subjective. Okay, well, I mean, let's imagine that the next level of camera up has the capacity to record at 720 still, not just at full HD, but you could set it for 720. So now we see one camera and the other camera can do exactly the same thing. but only one of the two cameras can additionally do some other things. Does that make it of higher quality? Certainly not always the case, not as a general rule. But in this instance, one would think it's hard to think of a disadvantage. As a general rule, I would say that things that do multiple things tend to do each of those things less well than things that do singular things. So, for example, smoking a cigarette gives me a hit of smoke and nicotine, right? It could also spritz my face with a little bit of moisture, potentially. And then that would, I guess, cool me down. But in that instance, probably there would be a bit of a sacrifice, which is to say, some of the spritzing of water would get onto the cigarettes. The cigarette would smoke a little less well. The water spritzing wouldn't be as effective as if you'd set it up separately. Things have to compromise to do multiple things, but not always. It is point of view and the importance applied to that. You can provide a black screen to the word. The words better be good, friends. So, point of view and the importance applied to that. Well, so that's one side of the dichotomy, right? Historically and behaviorally, people behave as though quality is an essence of the object, so to speak. You can point to a very well-made piece of equipment and a very shoddily made piece of equipment, and it's difficult to dispute that by the conventional understanding of the word quality, one is of higher quality than the other. But again, you might say it's about perspective, but let's look at that as an example. It's just about perspective. So let's say that Rather, Vicky, patience. I'm in the middle of something. I'll get to you in a second. So let's say you were making a movie and you wanted a very low quality piece of equipment to put in the film for some comedic purpose or whatever. Even then, while it might be perfectly serving your purpose, it would still be serving your purpose because it's low quality. So, now you could say, well, but how can we objectively determine that? I mean, you're just talking about consensus, and consensus isn't the same as that objectivity. Well, my point is, basically, I'm taking a roundabout way to get to the question of aesthetics and whether or not aesthetics are objective or subjective. The position that I've long held, which doesn't meaningfully really answer any questions, is that aesthetics are objective but irreducible. And while I might be objectively right about an artistic opinion, I can't make arguments that withstand scrutiny to establish that I am, in fact. So, the thing about that position is what I'm saying is that it is in fact reductive to simply say that quality is subjective, namely a matter of perspective, and having nothing to do with the object. In some sense, this runs afoul of my cognitive function notions. So I'm talking about two sort of schools of philosophical thought that I've embraced that kind of run afoul of each other. One of them being, I reject aesthetic relativism. In other words, I don't agree that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think that some beholders have poor vision than others. And then the other notion, which is that of cognitive functions, which says that the biggest problem with understanding people, personality, and everything else is that underlying most psychological frames of reference is an assumption that the external is objective and that the internal is subjective. I think that's maybe if I had to identify a singular axiomatic mistake that's made, seems to infest a lot of psychology, that would be it. So, of course, it's not the case that everything external is objective and everything internal is subjective, because all of human experience is emergent of the being, and we may reference things external to us, but it's like if you look at the big five, it says extroversion, agreeableness, openness, blah, blah, blah. So in some sense, they're saying that openness is objectivity, because objectivity allows for the possibility that some new idea might be correct, whereas closedness is not wanting to be engaged with via reason unless it's consistent with their existing perspective. But there's not an acknowledgement that openness, as they understand it and test it, has a lot more to do with objectivity, subjectivity than it does anything else. Okay, let's see here. Let me go up and scroll up and see what kind of comments we've got in the old live chatteroo. I've been not looking at it so I could finish my thought. All right. All right, so back up to it's a point of view and the importance applied to that. You can write a black screen with the words better be good, friend. A little enigmatic, but I think I get what you're getting at. Let's see, but you could determine if it is objectively better by the amount of views and likes, could you not? Well, I mean, you could determine whether it's objectively more popular, but I don't think that the most popular YouTube videos are the best. I think quality is one factor in popularity. And I do think that the capacity to correctly understand quality is limited, and how well you understand quality has something to do with like the fact that some videos are popular but not good. On the other hand, it's very rare that you're going to encounter a super good thing that somebody won't, mention. They won't actually become successful by a word of mouth. So if I encounter I've watched some movies recently where I say, "Oh my God, I totally recommend this. You should totally go see it. It's such a good movie." Blah, blah, blah. I typically do that after any piece of media that I watch that is particularly impactful on me. I'm going to talk about it around here and suggest it and probably over-sing its praises and use a lot of hyperbolic language and so forth. And that's kind of how cream rises to the top. But, there are lots of ways that you can try to force your thing to become cream that have little to do with whether or not it's actually cream, and those are important too. How am I doing? I am doing just fine, Rathor Vicky, and I want to thank you so much for asking. How are you doing? Let's see. Diamond says, "At Running Fox, I saw your comments on the previous live. You are human, a decent human. If someone wants to trick someone, Eric, in a typing session, they lose the truth and their money." I think what Running Fox was trying to get at in that instance is, isn't it possible to invalidate the system by faking? And I said, well, I don't think that's a good way to test the system. Yeah, sure, but that would invalidate everything that's not a a standardized physical measurement. So you could have your weight measured, but you wouldn't be able to have your lifting capacity measured or even your lung capacity measured, because those tests would be considered not objective, because after all, you could fake it. I mean, actually, even height you couldn't measure, because the person could intentionally squish down a little bit and fake that they're shorter than they are. So it's like, that's not a good way to test a test. No, I said I don't understand lying and deceit, and I'm not sure I'm human. Okay. Have you counted your chromosomes, Running Fox? That's a good way to check. For example, if you only have 2 chromosomes total, you're not human. If you have some other kind of alien stand-in for chromosomes, not human. If in fact you are an actual fox who burrows into holes and steals chickens from chicken coops, then of course you are not human. So just keep those things in mind when exploring the question of your humanity. Also, whenever you go through life, remember to sing the following song. I don't want to wait for my life to be over. That's why I'm going to eat this cheese. It's good advice for everybody. I heard the most horrible song in the 7-Eleven today. Hi, Ashutosh Godar. Ashutosh Godar. Your name sounds like it's been anagrammed. Like, as though it's not your real name. When's mom? Oh yeah, I heard that's a thing. But the live streams can be a turnoff for some people for various reasons. See, I'm curious about that topic a lot. I'd like to think that I do a good job of live streaming. That, in fact, to the extent that this medium is going to be realized in its maximal manifestation, it's going to be realized by this modality, namely directly interacting with the people in the chat. And I'm curious as to why that's not working for me, but I don't know why, except maybe it's just not good enough or something. What was the song of 7-Eleven? That song says, like, you are everything and everything is you or something. It's this horrible song that the chorus starts off and you think it's a pretty bad chorus, but okay, I'll give it a chance. The verse, the verse comes in, you think it's a pretty bad verse, I'll give it a chance. Maybe the chorus is going to drop here and it's drop pretty good. But I tell you what, it's a terrible song. I'll try to find it. I actually found it in the car after I got out of 7-Eleven, so I could play it for Rachel just so I could say, isn't this terrible? I hate this song so much. And so I'll probably find it again pretty quick here. Oops. No, don't get copyrighted, Eric. Nobody likes the copyright, schmoppyright. Okay. You are everything. Stylistics, yes. Sung by the Stylistics. Again, I don't want to have it actually play, so I'm going to just there. I hate this song. I hate it so much. Ay, ay, ay. It's like the devil pooped on my face. I hate it so much. Don't you hate it when the devil poops on your face? I do. I'm Andy Bruni. If you want to listen to a terrible, terrible song, click that link. You'll recognize it. You know it. You already hate it. when you click that link, you realize, oh yeah, this song, I do hate this song. It's awful. Trust me, that's what's going to happen when you click that link. You'll be surprised. You'll be like, oh yeah, I totally do know this song. And I do hate it. Eric is completely right. You didn't click it? Why didn't you click it? Nicola, you're right. You agree with me? That's what happened? You clicked it. You realized that oh yeah, I hate this song. Sky Gear likes that song? Ooh, Sky Gear. I wouldn't go around public admitting that very often. Diamond, no. Thank you, RC. RC has some sense. Diamond, it's not. Look, there are songs that are so cheesy that I like them and they're good because, they got this weird kind of thing. Like ABBA, for example. ABBA works totally fine. Like Dancing Queen has got this kind of weird gaffery to it that still works totally. But that song, no. Oh, it makes me, it smells like, ugh, I hate it. Yeah, it's just not good. Yeah, okay, fine, Diamond. Fair enough. ABBA's cakey. I like that. That's a good way to put it. This is the point that I lose it. Stifled thought that should be encouraged. Eric can be the maestro. I'm not stifling thought. What are you talking about? Having opinions is not stifling thought. And these are fairly uncontroversial opinions that are unlikely to create many actual images. I'm mostly being playful. Yes, I absolutely hate that song. Yes, I have very strong opinions about music. Yes, I'm convinced that my opinions about music are right when other people disagree with them. That's not me stifling thought. That's me engaging in the expression of thought. And as you well demonstrate, Jeff Shaw, it's not that easy to dissuade people from their behaviors, preferences, comments, thoughts, beliefs, and other such wakas. And I'll tell you something else, Nicola Haristov. Don't make the mistake that I did in the car, which was to turn it down to say something to Rachel, forget that it had been on that song, have it on autoplay, turn it back up, because whatever is on autoplay that comes on after that song is also going to be completely fucking terrible. Trust me. Like whatever genre that is filled with nothing but toxic garbage. Does Eric have a sex addiction of any kind? According to CSJ, he's an ESTP. A lot of ESTPs are from nymphomania. I'm addicted to sexing young chickens, which is to say I'm addicted to determining which of them are males, which of them are females. It's a very challenging job. Almost nobody can get anywhere close to 100%. If you can get like 90%, you're a god at it. I like chickens. I like to get my hands up on feathers in the morning. It makes them feel soft. And baby chicks are adorable. And so, yeah, I would say it's fair to say I'm addicted to sexing baby chicks. But besides that, no, I don't have any kind of sex addiction. I like to have sexual intercourse with my Rachel. Sometimes, unfortunately, I get distracted, and then when I'm ready to go have sexual intercourse, she's already ready to go to sleep, and I have to wait till the next day. Does that make me a sex addict? When I go, aw, is that fiending? I don't know if that counts as fiending, though. It makes you a man? Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm too obsessed with sex. I think about sex as this thing that occupies about an hour total, about every other day. Like, there's at the beginning of the hour, I'm thinking, like, maybe she walked by, and this time, instead of no yelling at the thing, I notice her tits, you know. So I go, okay, I'm gonna end this live stream. So anyway, I'm tired of this, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sup? Hey, Rachel. Couldn't help but noticing that you got a couple of bands there, right there on your chest, right there in the front. Yeah, this here, this. You know, after a certain amount of joking around and maybe cleaning myself up, or finishing up whatever tasks and so on, then you go in and take your time with the intercourses. I like to ideally take a break in the middle, rest, go re-clean myself off because I'm super hygienic, and then return and say, okay, let's get back down to what we were doing. And then eventually, I end up having this, you call it mating event, in which goo emerges. So immediately thereafter, usually I fall asleep. And when I wake up, it's a good, 46 hours at least or so until that matter repeats, that whole process there. Towels, because I spray all over the walls. I try not to spray all over the walls. Yeah. It depends where it goes, depends on where I am, Like, it ends up on my own belly as often as it ends up anyplace else, because I do have a quality of, what's the word? I'm comfortable allowing Rachel to do her part. Let's just say it that way. And I'm not afraid to just lie there. It doesn't seem like such a bad idea to me, really. Causes me to get less winded than I might otherwise. And I don't have to worry about cramps. I'm an odd height, so it's always like, gotta kind of make myself shorter a little bit to line up properly. That can be hard on the calf muscles because I end up squatting instead of kneeling or whatever, because I think you get what I'm going. I think you get where I'm going with this, okay? So, yeah, since you asked or didn't, there you go. That, I think, explains it all. The thing that I've noted is I can't help but go walking. And I think the reason is because I'm tall and tan, I'm young and lovely, and I'm the girl from Ipanema. And it probably explains why I'm constantly going walking. Eric, if you listen to me, you will double your subscribers before the end of the year. Cloud, if I listen to you, I will change what I'm doing every 5 minutes. You literally just saved that song the other night. Are you talking about the girl from Ipanema? Mm-hmm. So you're saying you cycle back to the original idea every 6 months? Interesting. Well, I'd rather watch Lost in Translation than be tossed into a pit of castration. That's an old saying and a wise one. I think what I want to do right now is share with you guys some quotes and talk about whether or not they're good quotes and what cognitive functions they represent. Famous quotations. Let's see here. The 100 most famous quotes of all time. Number 1 is from Nelson Mandela. The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing. The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Nelson Mandela. I mean, I would say that is a pro-SE, anti-NI, anti-SI, anti-FE, pro-TE message. Thoughts? Agrees? Disagrees? Schmiggities? Bigopies? Fligglies? Okay, well, everyone agrees with me, therefore. That means you all agree. That's what that means. Okay, here we go. How about this? Look, let's take. I will come up with an answer, and you guys say what you think the answer is, and I'll tell you if you're right or not. What's the answer to this? What cognitive function does this represent more than any other? The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. What cognitive function is that? Thank you, Legends Fall. Correct. You win. And I know. SE, obviously. SE. Okay, next one. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. What function is that? What function is that? FI, good job, Oliver Linehan. You win the race to the correct answer. How about this one? If life were predictable, it would cease to be life. It would be without flavor. What function is that? Legends Fall wins the race. Extroverted intuition is the case. Okay. How about this one? This is interesting. If you look at what you have, you'll always have more. If you look at what you don't, you'll never have enough. What do you think that one is? I've got a notion. I'm going NI on this one, I think. See, I see this as a rejection of your actual experience and the claim that you can just name it what you want and that's fine. Well, it's from Oprah Winfrey, if that helps us. I think it's NI, not SI. I think SI would say, It's better safe than sorry. You might as well get more of whatever it is you need because you never know when you're going to run out. That would be like SI, you know? All right, let's try the next one. If you set your goals ridiculously high and it's a failure, you will fail above everyone else's success. TE is right. Legends Fall wins again. You're going to win this contest here by being first place. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to win the most highest percent, but as far as number of first places. What do you think about this one? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I think I see that as SI. I see it as SI because I think it's what it's saying is remember to experience your experiences, not just keep track of them and plan around them. Okay, it's sort of SI over TE. That's how I see it. All right, how about this one? When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and hang on. When you reach the end of the rope, tie a knot in it and hang on. TE. Ninfa, I agree. TE. That's totally TE. Make it useful. When you have given lemons, make lemonade. TE is my take on that. Always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. What do you think? No, you guys put the answer before I finished. That's my fault. That's my fault. You put the answer before I finished. Always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. Who made that quote? I say an INFJ is responsible for that quote. Okay? I think an INFJ is responsible for that quote. Her name's Margaret Mead. I don't know anything about them, but I suspect that's an INFJ quote. All right, how about this one? Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. I was actually thinking, I mean, it's a process thing, right? It's not a judging function. You could read it as SE, NE, NI, possibly. I mean, I see it as more NE, but when I think about it a little harder, I realize this notion of scattering seeds and seeing what grows as a metaphor is actually one I got from an INFJ, so it's hard to say about that one. All right, let's go to the next one. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Incidentally, who here believes in the beauty of their dreams? Yeah, sounds like fourth slot NI. I agree, Oliver Lionhand. Ding, ding, ding. You get a prize. Fourth slot NI. Okay, I agree with Oliver Lionhand. That sounds like fourth slot NI to me. Number 6. Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn. What's that? Yep. I agree. SI. Straight up SI. That is some straight up eight up SI. It's saying like, especially SI above N. It's saying, if you just tell me something, I'm not going to understand it or remember it because I'm SI above. I'm like an ISFJ. If you teach me to it, then you're making me actively apply my SI, so I'll remember it. But if I'm going to learn how to do it, you're going to have to walk me through the process because I'm TE polar. This is like It is like instructions for care and feeding of a TE polar person. All right, number 7. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. So beautiful. That is so beautiful. I love it. I love it. I'm currently touching each one of you with my heart. Do you feel my heart touching you? My heart is touching you inappropriately. Do you feel violated? Jeff Shaw, I don't think it's FE because it's Helen Keller who said it. All right, I think that's FI. All right, next. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. What's that? I mean, I'm going to go NI as well because I think what it's saying is don't let your experience blind you to the larger truth. So I'm going to say NI on that. Yeah, well, okay, Winston's mom would be right if it said, during our most confused moments, we must focus to see the lights. Then I would say TI. But it doesn't say that. It says darkest. So I'm going to say NI on this one because it's basically saying don't let the negativity of your real-time SI experience make you forget that the NI truth is good or something like that. Okay, so how about this one? Whoever is happy will make others happy too. So just be happy. It's very easy, okay? You say you're depressed, but let me explain something to you. Let me explain. A big smile will fix that. Because when you're happy, others are happy. And when others are happy, you're happy too. So just go out there and kill it with kindness, okay? Incidentally, also Anne Frank. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Well, Jeff Shaw, I will concede that my former implication of a warrant that because it was Helen Keller, it was more likely to be FI, has been counterfeited by my claim that Anne Frank's different than Helen Keller. I got those mixed up for each other. I thought they were the same guy for a while, but no, they're different. Anne Frank isn't blind and deaf. She's Jewish. And Helen Keller's not Jewish. She's blind and deaf. Big difference. Okay. Next one. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. FE or FI, everybody. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. Well, if in this quote, spread love everywhere you go, let no one ever come to you without leaving happier, you were to change the word to either in or on, this would be the motto of the world's most enthusiastic prostitute. Instead, the way it's phrased is consistent with the author of the quote, namely Mother Teresa. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come in you without leaving happier. To you. Next. You will face many defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated. What do you think? What do you think? FI? I think it's FI too. You might want to say NI, but I say FI. I'm going to go FI on that one. I think that's an FI thing. Okay, let's go on to number 2 here on this section. How about this? Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. What's that? SE. I agree. SE. Totally. How about life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Okay, I agree, SI. Okay, I agree with the SI answer, but I must say that as an NE dong who's an SI user, I can't help but I've said things like this. I never really understand something until I experience it. Then I get the so like for example, Rachel told me before we started going out that she had mental health issues and was bipolar and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'm sure that's just bullshit anyway. I don't really believe in these diagnoses that people give. Dunning-Kruger. And then, of course, I got to experience it, and my perspective changed dramatically. And I realized, whoa, what is this? I've gotten myself into something very serious. It's not something I should have just ignored immediately and thought, whatever, I don't think anything about that because I never experienced it. So, now, obviously, I think very differently about mental health, about bipolar mania and manic episodes, about psychotic episodes, what those things mean, and about medicating people for mental health issues. There's this weird kind of society-wide sense that people are over-medicated for purported mental health problems. Well, for people who have a legitimate mental health issue, such as bipolar mania, I mean, my perspective is very clear now that you have a human being who has a standard default equilibrium. That's who she is, right? And then there's this mental health problem that can cause her to deviate from that in varying degrees of extreme. And that we have a situation where she can either have that deviation damped down, but still present and be wrestling with it all the time, or have it actually find the right medication mix and have it snap into place. And then the thing is in remission. She's not damping it down and struggling with it. It's not a problem at all. It's gone. As long as she keeps this medication going, there's no sign of symptoms of it. And there's no sign of her being drugged up or anything either. So it's like that really changes your perspective about, or for me, it really set my perspective on mental health. It wasn't something I'd ever really thought about that much before because I didn't have anybody in my life who had a real mental illness. Rachel does, but the beautiful thing about it is I've gotten to see that mental illness is not a death sentence. Mental illness is not a life sentence either. That, in fact, with a little bit of the proper kind of attention from the right kind of professional, with the right medication mix, they can be restored to their native, happy, healthy, meaningful self. So I would suggest, Nikola Hristov, that if, in fact, your person is suffering specifically from bipolar mania, that you recommend to them the particular drug combination that Rachel's taking, because it's been amazing, eye-opening, revelatory. It was also kind of shocking, eye-opening, revelatory a few days ago Rachel skipped, I'm not sure how many days. I think 2, maybe 1 day of at least one of her meds, maybe 2 of them. And by the time we were riding down to the pharmacy to pick it up on our bikes, she was going nuts. She was starting to spin into crazy Rachel. And I hadn't seen it in 6 months. And all it took was missing 1 day, maybe 2 of 1 or possibly 2 of the medications. And no, she's not on lithium. She's on Prozac. I'll let me look at it. The other one. Okay, she's on fluoxetine, which I think is Prozac. She's on olanzapine. So it's the combination of Prozac and olanzapine that work like that. You got to take both of them if you got bipolar mania. When you take the combination of the two, all of a sudden, it works. It's a fairly recent discovery. There's a drug that has that combination in one drug, but that drug is super expensive. Yeah, no, I will not make that mistake again, Freddie Forgiato. I will not have it be Rachel say, hey, I need to go get my drugs, and then me go, okay, cool, and then forget about it, and the next day, hey, I really, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that again, never. I realized that it puts her in an awkward position, too. I don't like that. So, what am I getting at here? So the thing is, I get to see just how it is just like a something like high blood pressure medication. You take it consistently and your problem solved, presumably, if it works well enough. And if you don't, the problem comes back, and that's just it. But because of when we live in a time of good medicines and good science and stuff, Rachel gets to be Rachel for most of the rest of her life. I'm sure there'll be moments occasionally in the future as well when shit gets squirrely, the medication needs to be changed, whatever. But in a different era, presumably her life would play out very differently, Cloud says, Eric, are you a materialist or an idealist? I don't know what those terms mean. Let's see. Do not let making a living prevent you from making a life. What do you think? I have not found that to be the case, Diamond. So Kimberly was borderline and had an awful childhood. Borderline specifically is the consequence of an awful childhood. And in fact, the bad behaviors of borderline and the incurability of borderline comes from the fact that borderline personality is really just how others experience attachment disorder. In contrast, bipolar is totally different. Rachel's bipolar does not come from having a bad childhood. She had a pretty good childhood all across the board, as far as I can tell. Kind of a great childhood up to a point, and then, teenagehood, things get stressful, whatever. But she's not told me any stories about traumas from her childhood in particular. So, and yet she's bipolar. She was fine, never had an incident until she was 25 or something. So, I disagree with that completely, because I really think the BPD is exactly what I said, a manifestation, the way that other people experience someone's attachment disorder. Now, bipolar mania can cause somebody to not only just go into a psychotic episode, but a psychotic episode can be quite a powerful thing. Rachel stayed up for days and days and days, no sleep at all, during her psychotic episode, her the worst of them, and I mean went totally batshit crazy, hallucinating people in the garage and squirting into my dad's car with a hose, squirting the garage door opener with a hose, breaking it. Just going batshit crazy, right? So the thing is, like, I didn't know what to do about this stuff as it was starting to spiral. Primarily, I left her alone thinking, okay, well, she'll snap out of this phase. As a matter of fact, without any medication or any medical intervention or treatment or handling of shit, she'd stopped taking her meds. This was back about a year ago, okay? She didn't snap out of it. It got worse and worse and worse. She slept less and less and less. It didn't matter how much pot she smoked. She wasn't going to sleep. She just complained about how weak the pot was. She was alternately, hugely wide-eyed, cheerful, oddly and inappropriately, or really aggressive and negative, or, just insane. And then sometimes completely detached from reality. There was one point she thought she was talking to her ex-boyfriend, Billy, and was referring to incidents that happened between them and that they had fights about. This is because who knows how little sleep she'd gotten over the past couple of weeks prior to that. Very, very little, She was spinning out of control. And I ended up having to take her to the hospital. And that was a bit of a struggle as well. First, I had to find a hospital that would be willing to take her. Her situation is not something that's respected by the medical profession as much as somebody who's got blood spurting out of them, And they don't know how Rachel is normally. So they see this crazy woman, and that's who they see. And they don't have the contrast of, well, this is how she is normally, and this is how she is now, and so there's something really, really wrong. You gotta sedate her, blah, 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 blah. Fortunately, Rachel's mom was quite helpful in walking me through what the processes were, and I found a place with good doctors who were willing to admit her, and in fact didn't even have to 5150 or whatever it's called, where they do it against her will, which was nice because that's what we expected. I expected that to happen. It's like after struggling very hard to find someplace to take care of her or sedate her or something, finally this hospital was willing to take her in, and then she decided she didn't want to go, and she was sitting outside, and so I was sitting outside next to her, and I said, Rachel, please, you've got to work with me a little bit here. And at some point, she went inside, and I believe that she intentionally acted out at that point so that they'd say, all right, that's it. We're admitting you, whether you like it or not. They ended up not officially 5150 in her, but basically that's what they did. That's it. We're strapping you to a gurney and shooting you full of drugs. So I think she did it because she could see that I didn't have much left in me. I was at my wit's end here as to what to do about this. And anyway, so I think she did it for me to help me not have to deal with her for a while. And so, the other thing is, she also indicated she hates it. She hates being hospitalized. It's not the first time she'd been hospitalized. Not the first time she'd had a psychotic break. And that she couldn't stand it or whatever. When I went to visit her at the psych ward, it wasn't especially depressing or restrictive or anything that I expected it to be, given the fact that she said how much she hated it. She was even there voluntarily. But what I came to understand is that it was very frightening for her. It was frightening because, she's coming out of a psychotic break. She's in this place that's, people are telling her these rules. She's not in her right mind. She's not sure what to do about it, and et cetera, or whatever. So, after that, I don't know why I'm telling this story, but after that, I said to her mom, hey, look, this is not what I signed up for. And her mom said, I totally understand. And then, Rachel was going to have to go back to New York no matter what, because after squirting into the inside of my dad's car with a hose and pouring like a thing of like lubricating oil inside the car and destroying the garage door opener, I needed to send Rachel back to New York for at least a while, because Dad was not going to be fine with, he was not mad or anything, but it required that I do something, So here's the thing. So Rachel went back to New York, and before she went back, I realized I may have said to her mom, like, hey, I didn't sign up for this, but the fact is I didn't want to lose Rachel, and I felt very strongly attached, and the whole thing made me very sad and challenged to deal with, because now she's back in New York. She's back in the hands of Mercy General, this incredibly awful mental health facility that she was going to before she came out here. Of course, when she came out here at first, she had no mental health facility or care out here whatsoever. So, while her care at Mercy General was terrible, my approach that I'm sure this mental health problem really just links to the fact that you're not happy and and you'll be fine once you're here. That notion was crazy of mine. So, thing is, once she was back at Mercy General, though, the same sort of problems that were happening before began happening again, which is to say, her family and Mercy are forcing her to go through these programs, some of which she thinks are fine, but most of which she doesn't get why she's doing it. Why is she having a problem with this whole program assignment thing that she has when she gets back to New York? Well, because she has a mental illness, not a behavioral disorder. So ongoing treatment programs are for people with behavioral disorders. I am a recovering alcoholic. If you if alcoholism were an active problem for me, you'd want me to go into one of those kind of ongoing behavioral programs. Okay. Rachel has, let's say, an ear infection. If you have an ear infection, you give the person antibiotics so their ear infection goes away. You don't cause them to come to a ongoing series of talk therapy sessions that purportedly help you to better understand how your bad thinking causes you to get an ear infection. Well, that's what they were doing to Mercy because, of course, they wanted to charge the insurance for a bunch of ongoing bullshit. So they were treating her for cannabis addiction. And they were saying that the reason she has mental illness has a lot to do with the fact that she keeps smoking marijuana, and that's the problem. Well, eventually, her brother decides abruptly that he wants to kick her out of the house because she comes into the house one day smelling like marijuana, even though she smoked it outside. And her brother hates that, and he can't stand to see his sister doing that when it's not so wrong for her and unhealthy for her, and blah, blah, blah. So I try to talk to the guy about a schedule for bringing Rachel back here. He won't talk to me at all. And I end up kind of having to rush Rachel back here. Rachel is rushed back here and is still not on the right meds, is still on the Mercy General meds, and starts going crazy again. This is pushing us to the very brink of our relationship. Girlfriend, Hector. I'm getting close to my absolute fill of dealing with the crazy. But I also know quite well that she's been saying from the get-go that they're not giving her the right pills, that she needs a sleeping pill because she's not sleeping properly at night, and that's what makes her crazy. And that the stuff they're giving her to sleep, namely Seroquel, doesn't work anymore. And Trazodone, those things don't work anymore for her. They don't put her to sleep. I watched her take the handfuls of those things, along with lithium and some other shit, and not sleep at all. So we, at the last of my rope, we got a private psychiatrist who was expensive. So in other words, we knew in order to deal with this guy, it was going to cost us $1,000 for basically an hour and a half total, like broken into 4 sessions. Ended up being more because he was like, it basically, he's like me. If he wanted to go over, it's fine. Well, we talked to him. I tried to explain, the first time we met with the guy, I had a big fight with the guy, basically. I spent the whole session asking him questions and him on defense, and basically me schooling the entirety of psychiatry for not knowing anything and not being able to answer any of my questions. Things like, basically, I was trying to figure out, look, how do we know for sure that this is not just a sleep disorder, that if we were to solve the sleep problem, everything else would go away? Well, why do we necessarily even need the bipolar drugs? Just questions that he couldn't answer. How do we know, for a matter of fact, that in fact that these things work better in combination? Because the control group wasn't so it doesn't really mean the things say it's meaning. I debate coached the shit out of him. And at the end of it, he was like, I agree with you. I hate the fact that my profession can't answer these questions, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, he tried prescribing meow, and that didn't work, really. So Rachel told him, I don't like it, meow. So he said, okay, let's get rid of the Seroquel entirely. Let's try this thing, this combination. They say, let me give you the Klonopin as a sleeping pill. And that worked right away. So I was like, okay, we're on to something. She is actually sleeping. She's sleeping the whole night through, sleeping, snoring, doing a great job of sleeping. This is huge progress already because she'd been asking for that for 10 years. A sleeping pill to make her sleep at night. But she was also getting very depressed. She had depression. And so what he ended up doing is simply adding the Prozac to the olanzapine and the Klonopin, and it was like a light switch. All of a sudden, Rachel was perfectly normal, healthy, happy Rachel. She was neither flat in affect or sort of spacey or drugged, and she wasn't crazy at all either. She was perfect. She was fixed. And she's been that way ever since, until she had to skip a day or two the other day. Basically because I was being careless and not taking her to get her medication when I should have, but forgetting about it. And then, oh, it's too late now. Let's go tomorrow. That kind of shit, you know? So what does that tell me? What does it tell us all? Well, first of all, her family, Mercy General, her mom, her brother, they were all completely wrong about marijuana. She smoked shit tons of pot. She smoked shit tons of pot when she first got here and went crazy because she was on the wrong meds. She continued smoking shit tons of pot and was not happy and was going crazy because she was still on the wrong meds. She came here, was smoking pot, was still going crazy because she's on the wrong meds. When we got the meds right, boom, she's perfectly fine, perfectly great, and still smoking shit tons of pot. So we know for a matter of fact the pot had absolutely nothing to do with it. So that's one great thing about Rachel being with me, and it's all working out the way it does, is talk about winning a long-standing argument that she'd been losing for nearly a decade with her family, insisting that this was such an important thing with this fucked up Mercy General place, treating her for cannabis addiction without her consent, and forcing her to go to all these like stupid group talk therapy things that are totally for like not for her problem, you know? And her mom trying to like TE the whole thing with like consequences and just demeaning like approach to the whole thing. It is so gratifying to know that my involvement in the matter has entirely annihilated any and all ground they've ever stood on this issue, that they can't even dare to bring up anything around the issue without incurring the righteous and undeniably correct wrath that they're well due for their long-standing pattern of malfeasance regarding it. So that's very satisfying for me, that all of her family knows, oh, fuck, we fucked up bad on that. We were totally wrong. Eric's right. Rachel was right. Rachel's healthier than we've ever seen her. She's in great shape. And when we were in charge of this and insisting that the problem was she wasn't doing it our way, we were wrong, and we were compelling her to continue to undergo a great deal of suffering that she didn't need to undergo. And now we've got to live with that because we can't deny it anymore. It's shoved directly in our face, all the way down our throat, into our stomach. I love that, you know, when people's wrongness comes home to roost, especially when their wrongness is ontologically assaultive to somebody else, especially when that somebody else ends up being my girlfriend. Cloud, we live in a society, okay? So stop being asocietal. Well, I mean, about this issue, it does. It doesn't have to be right about everything, but certainly about this issue, I definitely am right, and they definitely are wrong. So they were saying that marijuana is a significant factor in whether or not her bipolar expresses. But what we've learned is that it is not at all. And there's no possible way a sane person can say I am not right about that. I've been right about it all along and still am. We have all the evidence we need. It's rock fucking solid. There's no denying it. You know, I know you're really attached to your weird anti-drug position, Raphael, but don't let it make you irrational. You got to acknowledge when the truth is what the truth is. Sometimes it's too obvious, too clear-cut, too 100%. We have it on video. You can look back at her 6 months ago. You can look at her now. You know as well as I do. You really can't defend that position. What did I eat for dinner? Oh, yeah, I remember. I ate the classic buttery jack combo. I went to Jack in the Box. I ordered the buttery jack combo. When I get the buttery jack combo, I don't take any of the vegetables off it. I leave the tomato on. I leave the lettuce on. A lot of other places I might take some of the vegetables off. Have you read anything about brain heart damage COVID causes, Eric? Yeah. I've read a series of articles about so-called long-term or delayed effects of COVID. And the list of such effects purportedly claimed by various people runs the gamut from stubbed toe to brain cancer and everything in between. Now, there's no guarantee that the logical conclusion here is correct. It could be that, in fact, COVID has all these long-term things. But the logical conclusion to draw is this is a good example of psychosomatic illness linking to a lot of attention in the press, being encouraged ever more, snowballing, encouraged ever more anytime the notion of this sort of long-term effect gets brought up in the press. Now, oh God, I feel tired. And before I had COVID, I think tiredness is a long-term effect of COVID. It really feels like that to me. I could be proved wrong, but I'd say definitely the smart money is on hysteria, psychosomatic shit. Because if you look at those things, when they put the purported symptoms, they also often will say, now this, and this have been eliminated as causes for it. Which means they'll say something like, okay, people have foggy brain, but the doctors have eliminated the possibility that there's not enough blood getting to the brain. So in other words, they've gone through and tried to find a real cause for this. They haven't been able to find any. So instead of doing what the smart thing to do, which is to say it's probably psychosomatic, they attribute it to COVID. I mean, it's pretty sketchy, you know? Pretty sketchy. I think it's fair to say that. I don't buy it, but I'm able to be convinced eventually, but you know, at this point, you're really asking a lot from anybody to think that anything the COVID alarmists say about COVID is true. They've lied so many times. Like Bacon, you've been convinced of so many obvious lies so far that it would be out of character if what you were saying is correct, because you bought every other lie heretofore, and they've all turned out to be lies. So probably that's likely what's happening here again. I would guess. It's like, you know, if I had been a COVID alarmist at the beginning of this COVID thing, at this point, I'd be absolutely livid and fully on the other side of the issue. The thing that confuses me are the COVID alarmists who are still trying to fight on this losing battle on with COVID alarmism. Well, I'm saying, weren't you one of the ones? Maybe I've got you confused with somebody else. I thought you were one of the big COVID advocates. Like, no, we have to lock down everything and lives. Okay, I got you confused with somebody else. Never mind. My bad, Bacon. Sorry to slander you with my confusion. I've got some good news, everybody. The Jeff Shaw is here, and he's handing out grades and even some narrative evaluations. If you'd like to find out how you are, what your level of development is, whether you're aware this much or this much, how intuitive you are, or you just want some, enigmatic, sage referencing-ish kind of sounding stuff, check in with Jeff Shaw. He'll give you a grade. You'll find out how close you are to the truth or how far. And when we meet back here tomorrow, we can all compare our grades and we can see what directionality we need as a group to move in to approach that kind of clarity, or it's just Freddie Forgiato. You have wisdom, but insight is more than knowledge. Winston's mom. I see a lot of good thinking in you. You're almost there. Running chat. Don't be alarmed. Don't be afraid of my clarity. I mean no harm. Hector Pierce. I appreciate your efforts. Good try, champ. Skygear. Listen here, Chief Slugger. I'm afraid you have the creativity, but no real imagination. Not me, because it is I, Skygear, who am rubber. It is you, Skygear, who is glue. And that is why what you say bounces from me, but adheres to you. May I simply say, burn? The last time I remember ever burning somebody that badly, I went with you and what army. And if you're going to bust out a you and what army, you know that other guy is just going to be reeling backwards like this. No, I have no army. I'm sure it's bullshit, Bacon. I don't doubt that it is bullshit. I mean, the thing is, the point I would make, number one, is, as I said in the beginning, it doesn't work. It didn't work. It's not working. It's still not working. You've got, record numbers in various places, and everyone's like, oh, shut it down again. Just fuck it already. Come on. If you listen to me in the first place, we wouldn't have wasted all this time attempting pointlessness. Who would like enigmatic wisdom bestowed upon them? I am full of enigmatic wisdom. Here we go. Cloud. If auras were a thing, yours would shine in the glory of truth, and truth would be intelligible to those who lack wisdom. Right on the nose. Curious Kyra. Remember, before you go to sleep, your intuition It may shine like a beacon, but asleep, it throbs like my member. Words to think about, sir, ma'am, lady. Words to consider. Words, words, words. How about you, Ninfa? Would you like some enigmatic sagery? I've got some for you. I'm the, what do you call it? Oracle. I'm the Oracle of Delphi. Anybody ask me a question, I'm going to give you oracular answers. Questions for the Oracle. Everybody gets one free question from the Oracle, okay? Now, look, you ask a second question from the Oracle, they charge your firstborn child. So try not to ask more than one question of the Oracle. Just begin with Oracle, colon, then the question. I'll know it's directed to the Oracle and not to me, okay? Anybody who has a question for the Oracle, please go ahead and ask the Oracle. I will channel the Oracle of Delphi and give you the oracular truth, which, as everybody knows, is the best, albeit least useful, truth you can get. May I remind you that in Macbeth, the Oracle is the one who helped whomever it was never die by giving them their oracular vision. Am I the alt-right? Is that a question for me or the Oracle? Okay, Oracle of Delphi. Why am I here and not there? I, Oracle of Delphi, speak. You think where you are is how you know the place of land that you will see. But show me now what you really know, and land before becomes the sea. Okay, I don't remember what I said, but hopefully that was helpful. The Oracle had possession of me. Am I the alt-right? Let's see. No. Are you? Are you the alt-right? Do you mean Madeleine Albright? Are you looking for Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State? Madeleine, are you still here? Are you still here, Madeleine? I believe Frederick Allen is looking for you. You're a new political position? I didn't know people could be political positions. Are you, I know what you are. You are, the government should cap carbon emissions. That's not a new political position. That one already exists. You're an ENTJ. Well, congratulations. Everybody wants to be an ENTJ. Why? Well, they're typically more successful than some other types. I'm sort of meta counter post alt, post directionality, pre-agenda, pre-creational, post, pre-modern, classical, liberal, exclusionarily principalist with pragmatism mixed in. Something like that. I'm a Whig. J-Reg. Boy, you know what my favorite thing is? My favorite kind of sentence? My favorite kind of sentence begins with, you should. I love to be told what I should do. That is just my absolute favorite thing. Now, the thing about good old J-Reg here is if there's something specific about J-Reg that I ought to enjoy, then perhaps it could be articulated, and or if you really wanted me to see something very specific, you could ask if you could link to a timestamp or something, possibly. Instead, I'm instructed that I should listen to J-Reg, presumably investigating at my own leisure, in great depth, what J-Reg is, who J-Reg is, what he has to say, and finding what I want to find of value in J-Reg. And, you know, last night, when I was rubbing my scrotal region, all over J. Rig's mom's face. She wanted to tell me about her son as well. And I said, hey, J. Rig's mom, you think I give a fuck about J. Rig? The answer clearly is no. He's the political thinker of the youth. Well, he's welcome to come talk to me if he wants. I'm not opposed to J. Rig. I don't know who he is. I'm not looking to, I guess, discover great new things or whatever right now. I have a bit of an agenda for my life and my channel that I gotta try to execute. I'm not sure if it involves J-Rig or not. I'll tell you this, I get a lot more you should meows than I have time to meow, or interest in meowing, or even time to investigate meowing. Make sure you watch J-Rig instead of J-Rig Gaming. Try Sunday Octagon. He is funny, not serious. I see. Is he desperate but not serious? Your kisses drive me delirious. Who sang that classic song? Who knows? Who remembers? Neo Despot Donio Poto Manifestationalist. It's what's the Poto? I'm not sure what the Poto is. I would say it's somebody who has a new approach to attaining new despotism for a specifically new despot using a manifesto to instantialize their authoritarian regime. Is that a good definition for it? I think that's a pretty good definition for it. Well, look, now I'm really interested in talking to this J-Ray guy, and I'd love to meet with him, but I'm a little bit concerned since I spent most of last night rubbing my scrotum on his mom's face. Does he know this? Has anybody told him yet? Do you think he's going to be offended? Because I hope I didn't burn that bridge without even knowing I was burning it, Well, it doesn't really answer my question, Frederick Allen, but yeah, if you could. Wow. Maybe I should have removed my nuts from his mom's mouth long enough to hear what she had to say about her son. After all, live and learn, live and learn. These are the kind of funny, kind of witty, kind of wacky, quirky things sometimes I like to say to people about stuff. If you're somebody who has ears, is listening, is curious about stuff, and you're a person, and I'm going to say something, that's the kind of thing sometimes I might want to say. If you don't like the idea of my testicles in J-Rig's mom's mouth, I don't blame you. I've not seen J-Rig's mom's face since last night, and I don't know what she looks like, but I agree. It's a little crass. It's a little blue. It's playing to our lowest common denominators, and shame on me for that. Now that's a good video. Does irresponsible political satire have consequences? Perhaps I'll watch it. Spoiler alert. The answer is yes. No. Maybe. Sometimes. It depends. One of those things. Look, everybody's equal. Everybody's fine. Come and watch my sequel. Have a glass of wine. If you need to pee, we'll pull over near Vine and you can leave the truck stop while I work at the mine. The end. I need sleep too. Good night, sweet friends. Remember, life is ours to be spent, not to be saved. That's what D.H. Lawrence says. And remember, keep smiling because life's a beautiful thing and there's so much to smile about. Another nice remembrance here. Also, hey, in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. That's optimistic. How do you get links? You mean you want to put a link? Would you like me to bondage you with links of chain? If you'd like to put a link, I could add you as a moderator. Temporarily. Don't you dare abuse your power, or I will crush you like a bug. Just remember, Frederick Allen, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. Dr. Seuss said that. Okay, there you go. Cool. Let's see what it is. Let's see what he put. I'm curious. It's a link. Let's find out what it says. I'm going to copy the link address. I'm going to put it in the Piggity. And then at some point I will put it in the Piao. I'm sure you do fine as a moderator, Cloud. I'm not really opposed to you being a moderator. I don't generally like the idea. I don't like this conversation. That's what I don't like. I don't like conversations about me, moderator. I don't like it at all. It makes me want to go, You don't want me to have to do that, do you? Fiona Apple Criminal is a really good song.
Ooh, are you ready for...
And this guy? What am I supposed to do with this guy? You want me to offer him intimate favors in exchange for debating me about the existence of ghosts? It's a terrible plan. Remember, life is made of ever so many partings welded together. So true. This will be one of these partings pretty soon. 28. 29. Life is trying things to see if they work. That's got to be extroverted intuition. This is another kind of extroverted intuition one here. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's courage to continue that counts. He was a good prime minister. Success usually comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it. The secret of success is to do the common thing uncommonly well. What's that? Like ISTP? ISTJ maybe? This one. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Fuck you, Jim Rohn? Like, what the hell kind of quote is that? Wish you were better. I wish you sucked less ass, Jim Rohn, with your imposing your TE frame on everybody. Suck it. This is an interesting quote. The road to success and the road to failure are almost exactly the same. I really like that one. It says so little, but it says so much, right? It makes you think. I like that one. That's a good TE quote. As a TE frame quote, I much prefer Colin R. Davis's quote, the road to success and the road to failure are almost exactly the same. I much prefer that to the one before it. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Okay, Jim Rohn. It's like, be absolutely merciless with yourself. That's how you live. Remember, you always suck. You could be better. Suck less. Whew. That's a lot of TE, mister. I remind you of J-Reg. I should type him. I think he's an ENFP. Let's see what else we got here. If you genuinely want something, don't wait for it. Teach yourself to be impatient. It's interesting. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Harrison Ford, that's very Yoda of you. Oh, that's Henry Ford. Sorry, that wasn't Harrison Ford. That was Henry Ford. Different Ford. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. I see. And your point is? I don't understand. You can't change the world, but you can throw rocks into a pond. And your point is? How about this one? Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. I've never heard that before. That's funny. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Has anybody else heard that one before? I never heard that before. I'm shocked I've never heard that before. It's a quote from Audrey Hepburn. How about this one? The question isn't who is going to let me. The question is, who is going to stop me? That's a very ENTP kind of approach to things. Probably ESTP approach as well. I like this one. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. That is so true. I mean, I hate to really fall in love with any quote and think that it explains me. But boy, is that true. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Interesting. Well, first thing I would point out, Stuart Johnson, is that introverted intuition is not the negation of extroverted intuition. So your not X is wrong. All right, here we go. I didn't fail the test. I just found 100 ways to do it wrong. That's a great quote. That's a great quote. Well, what do you specifically mean? If you mean, why is it necessarily the case that your fifth thought function has to be an absolute value when your dominant function is an absolute value? It's because okay, so it's because the fifth is the natural validation partner of the first. In other words, when my extroverted intuition is validated in a way that resonates with other people and gets me effie good results, it's because it resonates as holistically true. When an SE-Dom has rad experiences and bitching cars, it leads to validation in terms of having cool stories to tell and the experiential pleasure of sexual intercourse. When a TI Dom, it's a little harder to explain for TITE. When a TI Dom attains perfect logical consistency and uses words precisely enough, then they can successfully convert what's normally an ordinal and observational interface process into a action deliberation communication. So in that regard, okay, you sent me an explanation of how cognitive functions interact with one another, but it doesn't work because I've tried it on this person, and they score polar meh and meh. That would be a critique that says your TI has failed to validate on TE grounds. So in some sense, it's implicit to TI that people be able to test it. And since not everything is purely metaphysical, most things that are explanations of things that link to some extent to the physical, then it's going to be an absolute value. It's different in the second and sixth because of the approach you take to it in the first place. So what to do when all meaning is lost? I mean, what I would do is I try to think back to the last place I left it. And then if it's not there, I try to check in the places where I often do leave things. I'm kind of tall, so I check on top of the fridge. Sometimes I'll tuck meaning between a couple of books on the shelf. If there's one space that just sort of like begs to put something there. And it depends how big the meaning is. If I have a small meaning, I could have left it in my pocket. It could be in the washing machine, in my pants, in which case it could be destroyed or not, depending on what kind of meaning it is. Most meanings about sand typically are waterproof, whereas meanings about fire will be totally destroyed if it goes through the washing machine. But if you can't find it at all, then you're going to have to buy a new meaning. And you can contract a metaphysician like myself at $100 an hour. I will spend an hour helping you to build a new meaning. If you don't want to do that, you could meow the meow. I don't know. Okay, well, I do seem reasonable. I appreciate you saying I'm a slick devil, but I assure you that I am not the Antichrist. In fact, I self-identify as a Christian, and I do so for good reason, because ain't nothing I love like Jesus. Jesus is the thing I love. I want to touch me up some Jesus. I want to see that Jesus above. I'll say, oh, sweet, sweet Christ to Jesus. Come and give me your blessing. If you come to Thanksgiving, you can have a plate full of dressing. Oh, yeah, Jesus. Sweet beloved Jesus, I'm a Christian. Oh, sweet beloved Jesus. What are we talking about? Is there the rest of what? The rest of Jesus? What more do you? You can't have all of Jesus in one sitting. You'll overstuff yourself. I don't want to do that. I'm not rapping about Jesus. I'm singing about Jesus. I don't want to go over all of the functions. I explained about the fives. What I did which ones did I do? I did SE, SI, I did NE, NI, I did TITE. I modeled how to do it on 3 of them. Why don't you just figure out the rest of them? I don't know. I hadn't thought it out before. Never asked myself that question before. I've never thought about it or come up with any answers for it before. So you can think about it now and figure out the rest of them. Is this the first time you sang about Jesus? No, certainly not. I have a song called People Aren't Jesus When They're Betrayed. It's a pretty good song. It's in 3. I also sang my song, Jesus, 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 Jesus Christ, you're Jesus, which is a really good song I sing about Jesus. Oh, Jesus, 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 Jesus Christ, you're Jesus. I ain't ever seen no Jesus Christ as Jesus Christ as you. You was Jesus in the morning. You'll be Jesus in the nighttime. Jesus Christ, Christly Jesus Christ away. When you swing down to the ground, now will you grab yourself a Jesus? I've got a couple Jesus hidden here. And I'm wondering if the plural of my Lord, that Christ the Jesus, is actually Jesus. How many Jesus do I need until I've got enough Jesus? Are there really indeed more than one? Most of the other Jesus that I know besides Christ Lord Jesus, they are all gardeners from Mexico. There. Does that prove I'm not the Antichrist? I hope so. What if the light of truth is simply the shadow of a dark lie? I mean, that's what people say about your mom, but I defend her personally. I mean, the question doesn't mean anything. To be perfectly honest, to take a straightforward response to it, that question does not mean anything. What if the light of truth is simply the shadow of a dark lie? That is a sort of question that does not mean anything. It's just gesturing at either meaning or intellectualism or something of the sort. Toadstones, yes, I have. I looked into them. They're not really from stones, you know. I mean, they don't really come out of toads. They're not actually the product of toads. Although they are the product of an animal, it's not actually a toad. No. They come out of a kind of fish that's kind of toad-like, but it's not actually a toad. Just so you know. I mean, I did Google it. I thought about buying Rachel a toadstone last night. It's called boronite or something like that is the mineral name for it. And it's some sort of part of some sort of toad-like fish that is left behind and becomes, like, I guess, petrified into this thing. So, you know. toadstone? Well, I mean, look, Frederick Allen, if buffonite, that's what it's called. If you want to talk about the truth, we start by recognizing that the way you're using it ensures we're talking about a metaphor. People assign the status of truth to statements. This statement is true, that statement is false, etc. The truth as a general thing is not really a thing. It's just kind of I don't know what you mean by that. No, it's not possible to know what you mean by that because it doesn't really mean anything. So the toadstone, also known as buffonite, it's called buffonite because it's the most boofable of all stones, is a mythical stone or gem that was thought to be found in the head of a toad. It was supposed to be an antidote to poison. And in this, it is like batrachite, supposedly formed in the heads of frogs. Toadstones were actually the button-like fossilized teeth of Lepidotes, an extinct genus of seminoid neopterygian ray-finned fish from the Jurassic period and early Cretaceous. Fossils have been found in marine sediments of France, England, Germany, early Cretaceous sediments of Brazil, Bornholm, Denmark, and isolated scales have been found in someplace else too. So, the fossilized teeth of that particular extinct fish, that's what's actually a toadstone. Okay? Isn't that interesting? It's not totally wrong to call it a toadstone. It's like it comes out of something that it's kind of like a toad. If you look at the picture of this fish, it's more like a fish than a toad for sure, but it's kind of got a squished toad-like look to it a little bit. You could see it maybe being thought of as a toad, I guess. I'm referencing something completely different. No, I'm talking about the toadstone, also called buffonite. Let's see. During excavations made for the Hartlepool Waterworks in Durham, England in 1865, workmen inadvertently freed a living toad from a block of magnesian limestone 25 feet from below ground level. Well, how did it get there? A local clergyman and geologist expressed the opinion the toad was 6,000 years old. I mean, why would they conclude that? 6,000-year-old toad. A living toad was liberated from a cavity near the center of a large rock by workmen digging for ore past McDerby, England in 1852. They came upon the rock, actually a large lump of ore, at a depth of 12 feet below ground level, and since it was too large for two men to lift, they began to break it with their picks. The cavity in which they found the toad was nearly 6 inches in diameter, considerably larger than the animal itself, and was lined with crystals, perhaps of carbonate of lime. The toad died very soon after being exposed to air. Why are these things existing? What are they? Why are they inside of stones? (1835) As one block of sandstone was being lifted and thrown toward a wagon, it fell and fractured. One of the broken pieces was thrown into the wagon, and in a cavity in one of the remaining pieces, a living toad was found. When the toad was first exposed to air, there's the mouse. God damn it. Well, let me open the door over here too. So if he does come over here, he'll go out that door. Go out either door, mouse. Either one. I don't care. Just get out of here. I'd rather not have you in here. So shoot. See, that scared it or whatever. Okay, so, An astonished toad was liberated from a snug cavity in a 14-pound nodule of flint by a workman's pickaxe at Blois, France in 1851. Upon finding the wind in its nostrils for the first time in no one knows how long, the toad jumped out of the hole and began to crawl rapidly away. There are three ways, broadly speaking, to account for the numerous reports of living creatures recovered from cavities in solid rock thousands of years old. The most decisive way is to declare, as one Captain Buckland did when a toad supposedly released from a lump of coal in a Welsh mine was exhibited at the Great Exhibition of 1862, that such things are a gross imposition, the work of fools and bunglers whose words and eyes are not to be trusted. A less impetuous explanation maintains that although the stone in which these creatures are found may appear solid, it actually contains fissures through which water, air, and perhaps even nutrients may enter. In the case of limestone, these fissures may become sealed by seeping carbonate of lime, the chemical from which the stalactites and stalagmites are formed. To the untrained eye, the new deposits would not be distinguishable from old rock, and the limestone would seem to be a solid uniform mass. The third account of such things is the most interesting, but is not verifiable by any ordinary means. It can be illustrated by a story from Tibet. In the later part of the 19th century, a venerable lama named Situ Pima Wangyao Rinpoche was making a journey to Lhasa in the company of several friends. One day, much to the alarm of his company, he fell into an unusually wrathful mood, and that evening insisted on making camp on a barren plain where neither firewood nor water could be found. The next morning, still in a bad humor, he obliged the party to leave the route for Lhasa and set out in a northerly direction that led, so far as his companions knew, to nowhere in particular. Since they held him in considerable esteem, however, they followed him without question. After several hours, they came to an enormous outcrop of rock, which Situ Rinpoche announced it was their task to break open. Since they had no tools but their wooden staves, they fared poorly at this task, and alarmed by their leader's behavior, they withdrew some 50 to 60 feet to confer, leaving Situ Rinpoche standing by the rock. Whereupon the Lama took his staff and struck the rock a single blow. It shattered and revealed within a large, repulsive-looking creature, somewhat like a salamander. Its scaly black skin stuck to the rock, panting for breath. Situ Rinpoche gently lifted the animal out of the rock and set it down on the ground in front of him. He then sat down and began to perform a certain yoga on the animal's behalf. In Tibetan, this yoga is called Pho-wa and is usually described as involving a transfer of consciousness. It is performed by lamas for the benefit of the dying. After a while, a narrow column of rainbow-colored light rose from the creature's head, and it died. Funeral rites were performed, and soon after, the body was burned. Afterward, Situ Rinpoche explained that he had liberated the animal, which in a previous life had had a connection with him, from one of the occasional hells. In the Buddha's description of other realms of existence, these occasional hells lie outside the main circles of hell and are sometimes encountered in this world. Very often they are instanced by the enclosure of a living creature in solid rock. What? Wow. Look, that's a pretty reliable source. We're talking about a 1982 Reader's Digest article. I don't think you get much more reliable than that. That is very reliable. So who believes that, in fact, there are toads locked inside of rocks? Why are all the instances of it from the 1900s? I want to know some more recent instances of toads found in rocks. If we can't find any toads that are found in rocks after 1850, it's going to be hard for me to believe it. If this were a phenomenon where these things had been in rocks for God knows how long, how many hundreds of years or whatever, then we'd still be encountering them, right? Wow. Do you believe in the incarnation of spirit in the soul sac of consciousness, or do you think the soul is more distributed across many levels of chakric consciousness? If you were asking me, I don't know what you mean. And I don't have any answer to that question. Time for me to go to bed. It's almost 1 a.m. I should have gone to bed ages ago. Okay. Thanks for the heads up, Winston's mom. But I'm going to bed right now. Good night. Goodbye. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. The brain is just an illusion. Watch out, everybody. Somebody's here to blow some minds.